Thanks for stopping by. Today is Saturday, August 8th. A few slides and a quick review of the calendar invite server we're at here in August 2026. So this is a quick resource map of what the installer looks like. So when you purchase the calendar invite server, you're going to get a backend with a CloudFormation template. It installs all the goodies for AWS. And then in particular, in your S3 bucket, this will expand out in the CloudFormation standard serverless template, and it will install all needed resources with the APIs, build out the API layer, the Lambda layers, and the functions inside your account, and also bind the calendar invite server front end to the back end. We ship on a simple zip installer for your laptop, and it bootstrap into your AWS account, and it works predominantly on your domains and your SES raw API. But it will go out and substantiate a API server, SNS, SQS, DynamoDB, S3, and all the Lambdas you will need to run the calendar invite server inside your account. That said, let's go on to the next slide. So fundamentally, the data gets in by installing this calendar invite server, obviously in your AWS account. When you promote it out of your SES sandbox, you'll be able to ask any customer or yourself to test. With regards to testing and or production live, a customer would be using their calendar client. The calendar client acts as a CRUD engine for new and update and delete. So once you install the calendar invite server in your AWS account itself, you're going to set up a create at your domain email box in AWS SES. And what that allows you to do is use the organizer's calendar client as a CRUD engine. You can use Outlook or, Google. And under Google or Outlook, they work the same. The calendar in either is a massive install base of billions of calendar clients. That's why we picked the ability to use a simple calendar client across any language, any region, any time zone to actually ingest data into the calendar invite server. That's why that was selected technology-wise. The point being is once you get this set up, your users will have a create command. You'll be able to administrate that mailbox using all the good security of AWS setup and architecture. That means you can control who you want to actually send calendar invites to this box. And what happens in this box is they hit the inbox, they hit a ETL process. That process starts with the S3. The box is notified via SNS, SQS. ETL happens with a Lambda exercise. We disassemble the calendar invite and then we store it in DynamoDB, and the DynamoDB has a record of the particular UID, and then we match that to the organizer's calendar client email address, and we bind those two for security reasons into Dynamo. So this creates a sticky address or sticky UID. We at all time know who's using the calendar client because we bind it with a little bit of crypto, and then we stick it in DynamoDB. And then under total recall, when a UID is requested from the DynamoDB database, we reassemble it for transactional and or embedded email calendar invites. And those calendar invites themselves are sent out using SES raw. We go grab the data out of DynamoDB. We assemble the UID on the fly and we build out a calendar invite. And then the calendar invite requests the RSVPs from your customers downstream. So this pipeline goes from left to right, inbound, organizer, disassemble, we reassemble on the fly based on the use case. We send out via SES raw, it goes out, API gateway here, and then essentially down here is where I'm showing a deployed schedule, such as a game calendar. When someone puts an email address up here, like Mandy at techvader.com, she clicks the buttons, she gets the calendar invites, and then she sends these calendar receipts back to the API gateway, and then we send them up into a storage S3. We run some Lambda exercises and put them back into DynamoDB for visualization and analytics of all RSVP data. So what I'm showing here down to the left here is a console. The console itself, I spoke about in the previous slide. The calendar invite server ships with the console. The console is for both organizers and the domain users for all data. In this case here, I'm showing you all a schedule generator. We generate a schedule based on all the data that's in there per each organizer. In this case here, I sent 2,500 calendar invites to this processing service through automation. I built out the MLB schedule. I decorated with our decorator GUI itself. And then I sent this out to Mandy and she picked out which game she wanted to go to. So let me get through this slide here. Let me go on to the next one. And then as we get into it, I think you'll have more of maybe a better idea of how this tech stack works. So again, I iterate on these slides here. Inbound ingest via the organizer goes through the pipeline. And what happens here in this display GUI on this left-hand side, we display all event data in the GUIs for applications. So that means these here, which we built down here at the bottom, these are the independent use cases in which the embedded calendar invite REST APIs run. And they run based on the data pulls out of the calendar invite server itself. So what that means is we built out a landing page generator, upcoming events feed, a schedule page for advanced sports games like the MLB. We started our business whereby we built a call to action button for the calendar invites to be stuffed into email templates like MailChimp or Klaviyo. And then recently, over the last couple of years, we've been working with what we call a VIP direct send app we built. And this app uses the REST API to bulk send calendar invite reminders instead of email reminders. So remember, billions of emails are sent across the internet for just email show up to this event because you're registered. We're advocating that you send out a direct calendar invite to a VIP list since your customers did register already. That all runs on this, this REST API bus, and this bus is talking back and forth to APIs on the calendar invite server, using these 9 APIs down here. So the other side of the APIs run what's called the REST API for sending calendar invites, collecting the RSVP data, and then updating the calendar invite pipeline. And I'm going to walk through what that really means here in the next slide. So as I go up one here and we go into the particular use cases, you'll see that left to right, I have single and multi-event schedules. And what the schedules themselves are doing is actually pulling data from this API up here. If I actually get out of this, there you go. We're pulling data from these pages themselves. So these are the apps in which we've built. The APIs are talking to this layer here. And then as we get granular in what we're really delivering in a technology to you, the organizer or somebody actually owning the business building apps with their tech stack, what happens is in these single multi-event schedules, we're actually taking this API here and we're embedding it into this single and or multi-event schedules. So we've built some very advanced schedules around the MLB, NBA, and then NFL to prove out a couple hundred games, 800 games, and 2,500 games to back pressure test our APIs work extremely well. And we can visualize those using the display APIs and at the same time embedding our calendar invites into these pages. So this has been battle tested on this side. And then under MailChimp, Klaviyo, and SendGrid, we've had thousands of users send millions of calendar invites using this particular API, the same API, but in a single use case whereby they go get the code, they embed it into a MailChimp template, they call to action buttons here, they click it, and a customer gets the calendar invitation. And then over here recently, as I was talking, we've what we consider perfected the batch sending of calendar invites for registrations. We have this test application that works. We ship with it in a calendar invite server interface. It allows a customer to select an event out of an event schedule, choose the event here in the picker, and then upload a file, and then click send. And this goes out to a list for a single calendar invite, such as a registration for an event. So as I get through this here, what I'm going to go is into the individual granulated sending portion of this. So here's a granulated schedule. Somebody puts their email address in, they pick out a particular game out of the schedule itself, they click one button, and the calendar invite is sent. That's a fully qualified, correct calendar invite on the internet. And then the customer downstream says yes, no, maybe. We collect that API, collect that data and send it to the API up to the calendar invite server itself. Now we're doing all this with the ability to essentially use this attendee needs action and role, and we embed this into every calendar invite with our API. So we're adhering to how calendar invites work on the specification of how calendar invites are sent and data is collected. So we're collecting this data here, and as I said before, we collected to DynamoDB, run some lambdas on it, and then we put it in S3 for cold storage if needed. The point being is that this API here is running very granular data out of a particular event here for Baltimore Orioles versus Tampa Bay as an example. So all this tech stack is built into these APIs in which we've built into the calendar invite server. So if you kind of go backwards and go look what I built here on the left, I'm showing the landing pages here as one of our shipping use cases. Then if I go again, I'm showing the same workflow for the embedded calendar invites into something like MailChimp. And then I'm showing here on the left on 14, 15, and 16, I'm showing that we have the ability to build apps and embed registration engines into a choose file. We send out a batch calendar invite to a list. And then in the same manner, this actually is an array of email addresses here as I'm moving around my mouse. This array of these email addresses go in the calendar invite engine, and then the API sends them one at a time in a microsecond out in an array in parallel, and we spray the calendar invites out to a registered event. So example, if you have somebody that's registered for an event, would it be 100 or 1,000 or 10,000? We can send calendar invites out. The customer clicks the calendar invite and does yes, no, or maybe. We collect that data so you get a granular understanding of who actually has the calendar invitation on their personal calendar. Now, the cool thing is if they are to change any of their data downstream on their calendar throughout time prior to the event, we're collecting that data and we're monitoring it here because the receipts are then updated back to the API gateway. I'm going to end there. It's a bit lengthy as they all are, and I appreciate you stopping by if you hung in there. Thanks.